The cosmos now is replete with cross-border transactions of all kinds, and we can conceptualize it as a transformational convey in the human society, extending the wings of power relations across regions and continents while linking distant communities. And while fortunately for us, the primordial ideals of sovereign equality still persist. And this prime principle of international law sees to the inviolability of their territorial integrity and political independence. And this also purports that the role of actors in international relations and cross-border transactions cannot be easily glossed over. Ghana and Norway share numerous years of enjoyable ties together. This Scandinavian country shares borders with Finland, Sweden, and Russia. The Kingdom of Norway comes across as a technological hub crammed with the know-hows and effective practices for utilizing natural resources for maximum satisfaction. While this also endorses the numerous interventions carried out by the Kingdom, which cuts across fisheries, food security, education, just to mention a few. Notable among these, however, are the oil for development and fish for development, which are also aimed at creating wealth and jobs. The leaders of both countries, Norway and Ghana, have great affinity for the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. It will interest you to note that the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Norway co-chairs the United Nations Advocacy Group for the Sustainable Development Goals together with His Excellency President Nana Addo Dankwa Akuffo-Addo, the President of the Republic of Ghana. We are elated and delighted today to have in our midst Her Excellency Ambassador Ingrid Mollestad, who is the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Norway to the Republic of Ghana, delving deeper into the various ways to solidify our bilateral diplomacy for posterity. At the end of the show, you will attest to the fact as to why she's the best of the job. While you are watching the Youth Time show on Grace Live TV with me, your host, Vanessa 𝐍𝐸 you can call me the diplomatic voice of the youth. Grace Live TV, diplomatic information, and more. Don't go anywhere, the show commences very shortly. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Youth Time show. As I mentioned earlier, I'm here with Her Excellency Ingrid Mollestad, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Norway to the Republic of Ghana, helping us to delve deeper into the Norwegian-Ghanaian bilateral diplomacy. Your Excellency, Akwaba.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. So before we delve deeper into the conversation, we've known you for over a year now. If you could do it simply in a simple sentence, who is Her Excellency Ambassador Ingrid Mollestad and the diplomatic roles you play as Ambassador of Norway to Ghana?
Thank you so much. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting me onto this show. I think it's very important that you open to youth and explain to them a little bit what the diplomatic role is all about.
Thank you.
Who I am, well, as you said, my name is Ingrid Mollestad. I've been in Ghana since September 2021, so almost a year and a half now. And I am a career diplomat. So I've been with the Foreign Service of Norway for almost 30 years in different postings. Before Ghana, I was in Havana, Cuba for 4 years. I have an adult son that lives in Norway, so I'm a mother of family. And I have a multitude of interests, reaching from culture, reading, music. Of course, my profession takes up a lot of my time. And I am delighted to be here in Ghana to learn more about the culture, the people, and the friendliness and the welcome I received have been extraordinary. So that's in a nutshell, a little bit about me. My role, of course, is to be the representative of the government of Norway in Ghana. And thus you can say that even though we have activities on a number of different fields, as you said in your introduction, the most important part is simply to introduce Norway to Ghanaians, to try to improve, strengthen bilateral relations, So to present Norway to Ghanaians, Norwegian businesses, and vice versa as well, together with my Ghanaian colleague in Oslo.
Yeah.
So yes, that's pretty much it really. Represent Norway in Ghana the best I can.
Represent Norway and Ghana. Thank you so much. But with your career as a career diplomat, having worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway in various capacities, I also saw that you worked as the director of the United Nations and Multilateral Affairs Office. Now, coming to Ghana, how has the experience been from Cuba, from Havana, Cuba to Ghana? What are the similarities or what are the differences between the cultures, the people, the gastronomy?
Oh, well, it's a big question. Of course, as I said, 30 years of diplomatic career. But I think what binds everything together is an interest for people and different cultures. And I find that wherever I go, I can draw on previous experience. Right. So what I've done in the ministry, as you mentioned, I've been working with human rights, with women's rights. I've been posted in Geneva, working also there with a lot of multilateral issues, development issues. I was ambassador to the Caribbean and covering countries like, for example, Jamaica and Haiti. And you would know that those countries have a very strong relationship and feeling about West Africa in particular. So between those cultures, I find that coming from the Caribbean to Ghana has been a little bit like a sensation of people being very welcoming, very warm, and carrying a lot of the same culture.
Right.
So also food-wise, there are similarities. Music-wise, I mean, there is a lot of reggae in Ghanaian music. Some of your artists have that as a source of inspiration.
Right.
So yes, you can say that as a diplomat, you're in a way trying to be at home everywhere, and you draw on your experiences for each step you take. But I must say that for the moment, the absolute highlight is to be here in Ghana at this point in time.
The absolute highlight. Thank you so much. Now, delving into our bilateral diplomacy, the etymology is from the 1900s when Ghana and Norway started having partnership. Now, how would you describe the rich, solid bilateral diplomacy that exists between Norway and Ghana and its importance for both countries?
Thank you very much for that question. It is true that our relationship goes way back, really. And Norwegian sailors have been around the coastline of West Africa, and we have had consulates in many countries of the region, including Ghana. And we opened an embassy here, well, about 12 years ago. So that, of course, has been an intensification of the relationship, very much indeed, when we have an embassy here, and Ghana also has an embassy in Norway.
Awesome.
But since the mid-1960s, the relationship has been growing stronger and stronger. And over the past years, I would characterize the relationship as being an excellent one. And including on the highest levels between the President of the Republic of Ghana, the Prime Minister of Norway. There has been visits in the recent years. I think the President was in Norway, if I'm not mistaken, in 2021,
yeah.
And the Prime Minister of Norway was here also in the same period. So at the highest level, our Prime Minister and your President have been chairing very important global meetings together. Only last year, a big global meeting on non-communicable diseases. The Global Disability Summit was another one where the two leaders took initiative to do something together, and very successfully so. So at that level, it's very established and outspoken that we wish to have a very strong relationship. And I think that in terms of trade and investment, this is something that is also of importance that we are continuously working on. We have had meetings and conferences to stimulate further investment and trade between Norway and Ghana. And it extends to, people to people, civil society, lots of different projects, visits, students from Norway coming to Ghana, Ghanaians going to Norway, the relationship is, very simply put, a very strong one. And part of my job, as I said earlier, is to make sure that that continues and even solidifies further. So it's part of my job.
And you've been doing it so well by solidifying the people-to-people relations. And one way of also solidifying the people-to-people relations is through economic diplomacy. And 2 years ago, Accra hosted the high-level business forum on trade and investment between Norwegian and Ghanaian businesses. How is the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Fisheries of Norway, in collaboration with the Ministry of Trade and Industry in Ghana, helping to solidify our bilateral relations? That is to say, the extension of businesses from Norway to Ghana and vice versa.
Well, thank you very much for that question. In fact, that conference that you talked about, that was actually opened by His Excellency the President of Ghana and the CEO of GIPC, so very high level, and attended by numerous Norwegian businesses. And it was the first official travel abroad after COVID by the NABA, which is the Norway Africa Business Association. So that gave me and us a solid foundation to continue to build on. And you talked about, of course, the ministries. My job here, with the support of my ministry, both the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Fisheries, for example, at home, is to try to facilitate the movement of investment and the trade going on. So just to make a very concrete example, yesterday, as a concrete follow-up of that conference in 2021, there was a new conference that took place, but within the renewable energy sector, so on solar particularly. So Norwegian companies came here interacting with Ghanaian companies to try to, in a way, match Norwegian competencies with Ghanaian priorities and ambitions in the field of renewable energy. And to my, so I hosted them here last night, and my feeling is that a lot of things are going to happen, and that there is a very positive feeling about possibly investing in this area in Ghana. And that is, of course, something that would be very important for the relationship. And I feel that both in Ghana and in Norway, authorities are very, very supportive of this, of course, which would be important for both countries.
Yeah, then talking about renewable energy, then I think it will be important to ask you this question, because numerous, almost every country around the world is putting in measures to ensure the protection of their natural resources. Can you shed light on specific policies from Norway to Ghana to help Ghana's sustainable resource management?
Yes, I can do that. Obviously, we were talking just now about the solar sector, because Ghana has very ambitious goals for its renewable energy usage up to 2030, and following up on the Paris Agreement, as is Norway. So in a way, to link up Norwegian businesses and competences with this goal, I think is part of the answer as well, because private business is really part of the solution. When it comes to bilateral, in a way, more assistance, for example, Norway, as you know, is a maritime nation with a very long coastlines and a long tradition in fisheries, and Ghana is also. So we have, I think, what you mentioned in your introduction as well, something called the Fish for Development Program, and we had our annual meeting today. So I come straight from there now, and that is also Norway's trying to share its know-how and competence with Ghana's authorities and the ministry, the Fisheries Commission, for sustainable use of fisheries resources and also for aquaculture. And this, of course, brings us onto the topic of food security and so on. So maritime resources, I think, is key, and this is something that we do a lot. Energy, as you know, Norway is a nation with a lot of oil and gas resources, and we've had that for, developed our resources for quite a while, and have also a rich experience from how to sustainably manage those kinds of resources. And we have had an extensive cooperation with Ghana for a long time, also on how to manage and use those resources for the benefit of the population. And I think that, for example, a big part of Ghana's legislation around this area has been inspired by Norway's examples and how our history has been forged by our own resource in that field. So those are two elements of cooperation between Norway and Ghana that I think that, again, matching the needs and priorities of Ghana with what we have to offer, which I think is actually at the core of any successful partnership.
Right, that is so true. I think the oil for development and fish for development is really helping us, and we're really grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is where time permits us to bring the interview to a very first session. We'll come back after this short commercial. Welcome back from the commercial break. We are still here with Her Excellency Ambassador Ingrid Mollestad. I think I got the name correct this time around.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Yes, and one of the assistive measures or policies from the Kingdom of Norway to Ghana is the Norfund. Can you kindly tell us a little bit about Norfund?
Yes, I'd be very happy to do that because it is a mechanism that isn't very well known, and I think we should talk more about it. And we should also talk more about it because it is specifically directed towards the private sector development and job creation.
Wow.
So Norfund is the Norwegian government's fund for investing in developing countries, but in private businesses. So it provides capital to private companies in countries like Ghana. And Ghana is one of the main countries. And actually the regional office of Norfund is here in Accra, Ghana, with a big staff here. And there are a lot of businesses that benefit from this fund in Ghana. And I would also like to add that one of the reasons I think this is such an important in a way mechanism is that they invest particularly in sustainable businesses. So, for example, in the energy sector, it would be sustainable energies, renewable energies. It would be better ways of doing business, like a cement factory in Tema that is actually polluting less because they use innovative technologies. So this is a mechanism that I'm personally very proud of.
Wow.
And I have visited a lot of businesses that have benefited. Also here in Accra, for example, big solar installations. So contributing to private businesses' sustainability through this fund. And this is something I'm very, very happy with and proud of, and that I'm glad you give me the opportunity to talk about.
Thank you so much. I think we'll leave the link to the Norfund, right? They'll be scrolling down the screen. So this is to all companies who are interested. Just look below. The link to Norfund will be scrolling down your screen. So talking about another fund, which is very important to us, is the issue on food security, which can be a clarion call for African countries in a whole. We all know what happened last year with issues of food security and all. How is the Kingdom of Norway assisting Ghana and other African countries where you are accredited to ensure food security?
Well, thank you very much. And this is something I think that we are talking to young people here. And it's very important that we talk about this issue because it's one of the biggest challenges of our time.
Right.
And it's not only something that we discovered last year. It's been food security or rather food insecurity has been increasing over quite a few years. Including in this region and on the African continent. And Norway, as you know, climate change is one of the drivers, but the COVID pandemic didn't make it any easier. And of course, the Russian war in Ukraine also have made it very clear and made the situation worse. So food security is, I think I would say, probably the top priority of the Norwegian government's development policy right now.
That's great.
And we launched a strategy on food security at the end of last year. And Ghana is one of our partner countries in the implementation of this strategy. We're still working out concrete measures under that umbrella.
Great.
And as you know, Ghana isn't by far the worst off in this sense, but I think that it's important to have this on top of the agenda in every country, including in Ghana, which is why we have chosen Ghana as a partner country to work with us. I think, and this is something that the strategy and the Norwegian government is very clear about, is that food self-sufficiency, producing food, is probably the most important thing to focus on.
Great.
Of course, we all know that conflict and war contributes, and what is going on in the Sahel, of course, is a factor in all of this.
Right.
But what we can do something with is to inspire and to work with agricultural production to make it more effective and efficient, to inspire younger people also to go into the agricultural sector. And we have a lot of, we work with Institute of Tropical Agriculture, for example, on many different projects regarding the cocoa sector, funding sustainable natural fertilizers, in fact, to reduce dependency on food, because I think you would agree with me that the fact that so much food is being imported in a country that has such opportunities for producing food is something that we should work together to end.
Right.
And I will add, we talked about it before, but of course, fishery sector, maritime sector are also very important to food security and to access to high quality protein. So this is of course already something, as we have talked about before, that Norway is actively working with Ghana in. So yes, partner country on food security, and Norway globally, we are one of the biggest donors in this field. Not only with humanitarian aid, but actually to try to avoid a deepening of the crisis and defending ourselves and being resilient towards shocks that might come, also external shocks like the war in Ukraine. Yes.
That is so great. And I think all that contributes to the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Exactly. And we are almost getting closer to 2030. Yeah. And I mentioned earlier that the Prime Minister of Norway is a co-chair of the UN Advocacy Group for the Sustainable Development Goals, together with Ghana's President. How is the Kingdom of Norway assisting Ghana's holistic pursuit of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals? After all that you've said, in a nutshell, how is it?
Well, in a nutshell, I think that Sustainable Development Goals are, in effect, the framework that we relate to in everything we do now, whether it's on energy, on food security, on fish for development, whatever topic, even engaging private sector in a sustainable way. It is all, in fact, a pursuit of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
And we haven't talked much about that yet, but our common efforts also in the sector of health, as I think I mentioned, our common efforts together with the President of Ghana and the Norwegian Prime Minister towards disabled person with disabilities. All of those are actually concretely addressing Sustainable Development Goals, as is, of course, which we haven't touched upon yet, but it's very close to my heart, is the rights of women, of course, also the situation for children. So I can say that everything we do is, in a way, addressing and relating to the Sustainable Development Goals.
That is so great. Now coming to the topic that is on your heart and is so important to all of us here in Ghana, is women empowerment and girl-child education. And one important part of the Sustainable Development Goals is to create opportunities for women for elevation. How is your office helping the issue of women empowerment in Ghana, supporting women in micro, small, and medium-term enterprises?
Well, there would be a lot to say about this.
So much, because I saw you in Tamale, the northern parts, assisting women and all.
Yes, it's been, and let me first say that coming to Ghana and engaging with women at so many different levels in the private sector, in the political arena, going, as to Pusiga, talking to young girls there about FGM and forced marriages, some of these problems that still persist in many countries, has been a real journey of enlightenment and of inspiration. But yes, women's rights, and particularly maybe, let me highlight that now because that is something that is very important for Norway at this juncture, that is women's sexual reproductive health and rights. And what we do in that, where we are, I think, working through the UNFPA as one of the absolute biggest donors, including many, many programs here in Ghana. So women's health, to avoid mothers dying in childbirth, to avoid infant mortality, to prevent child or young girls getting pregnant too early, where it's difficult for them to carry the baby through. It's a lot of things that is important to Norway when we are saying that women's sexual and reproductive health must be put at the top of the agenda. So yes, I talk to this everywhere. We have a program to improve the standard of midwifery in Ghana. So midwives and professors are coming to Ghana and supporting the institutions here in establishing standards and improving that. You asked particularly about private sector, which is of course very important, and that there are a lot of brilliant women in the private sector in Ghana, but I think that they deserve even more encouragement. And so what Norway does, for example, is we have a program called Female Future, which is something that we are doing in cooperation with the Ghana Employers Association and their sister organization in Norway, training young women that are in their maybe just about to become managers or leaders, or need that little extra push before they do so. So they come and go through a very comprehensive course and then get their diplomas. And this is something that we do to, in a way, stimulate and help assist women becoming leaders. Because I think that everywhere, sometimes I hear people talking about women as a vulnerable group, but hey, women, they're 50%, if not more, of the population. And if you don't use that resource to its fullest potential, then you don't realize your development potential either. So this is something that I think Ghana is not bad on at all.
We are trying.
Yeah, you are trying and you're doing well. And I think women in business, women in politics, and women's health are all areas where Norway will continue to support globally, but of course also everywhere we are. And I will also add one thing is that women's rights, as I said, a priority for my government. It's also cross-cutting in every project we do. So meaning that we fish for development, we are addressing particular needs for the women in that sector. When we are supporting the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Institute, we have been doing that for many, many years as the sole core donor, mainly making that center in Accra, Ghana, the center of excellence of ECOWAS in peacekeeping training. There we also address women peacekeepers and women in a way in those kinds of situations as a priority. So I can say that there is no program where Norway would not include those topics, whatever we do.
And Norway actually includes, the provision of quality education, which is the fourth SDG, which is of great value and vitality to my viewers. They want to know how to access the higher educational opportunities in Norway that's available for Ghanaian students, because we have a very large number of Ghanaian students studying in Norway. How do we access the scholarships?
Well, first of all, I'm so happy that you consider Norway as an interesting...
A great destination for higher education.
So, and when I arrived in Ghana, I wasn't quite prepared for how many people would come up to me and say, I studied in Norway. I was in Bergen, I was in Trondheim, I was in Oslo, yes. So that has been very, it's been very delightful to hear that. You know, we're a small nation, Norway, and we have a peculiar language because we speak Norwegian, not English.
No.
And there is an association, an alumni association that's very new, was created only last year, consisting of young women and men that have studied in Norway. So obviously, Norwegian universities would like to have students, foreign students, and students from Ghana. So the opportunities are there. You have to, of course, apply and get accepted to the university and go through the motions. But I think that Norway is a very good destination with a vast opportunity of study possibilities for Ghanaians. And also, I believe that in Norway, I think that foreign students, as far as I understand, are enrolled in a multitude of different programs that makes them feel included. They have access to a lot of different services in Norway, which is also helpful. So yes, I would encourage Ghanaian students to look at Norway as a possible destination. And yes, you talked about scholarships. There are possibilities, a lot of, I don't have exactly all the details in my head, but there are cooperation agreements between Ghanaian universities also and Norwegian universities for exchanges. So for shorter and longer terms. And also, I think this is worth mentioning that I'm very pleased that every year 40 Norwegian students are coming to Ghana as well for a period of time, so that there is exchanges and traveling between young people from Ghana and Norway at all different levels, traveling both ways, so to speak.
That is great. Yes. Thank you so much for all that you have shared. I think all these things are going to solidify our bilateral diplomacy. But between now and the end of your tenure in Ghana, what would you have? What would you like to achieve before you leave as the ambassador? This is a very big question.
It is a big question, and I think that every ambassador, of course, has the ambition to be able to leave a mark or leave something specific when you go. And what I think a lot. I think Norway. We didn't talk about it, but for example, within the field of security, Ghana and Norway have been together on the Security Council, and I think that we have had some very productive results there. So I think now I'm answering a little bit like a diplomat, actually going back in time instead of going forward. Yes. No, I think that if we can have even more concrete results, for example, in the Fish for Development program, which is a new program, just started in 2019. So hopefully now every year we'll be able to measure progress. That would be, I think, very important, as we said, to the natural resources management of Ghana.
Right.
I think that's measure concrete results and improvement in some of these programs. I think would be, and then of course I would very, very much like to see more Norwegian investments in Ghana, and the energy sector being one of them. But I think also there are a lot of openings, and my ambition is that there will be an understanding, Norway, maybe better understanding of what Ghana has to offer as a destination for investment, and then we'll be able to help matching those interests and those capacities for the mutual benefit of both countries.
Thank you so much. We are so grateful. This is where the conversation comes to an end. But before we leave, Your Excellency, this is where the youth of the world, not only Ghana and Norway, but of the entire world, this is where they are watching. People who aspire to be like you. I know you have so much to tell the youth because I was here for the 3 decades under the sun, and I saw that, yeah, you are a really a good advocate for the youth. What advice do you have for us?
Oh, thank you so much for giving that opportunity. Well, advice to the youth. I think that there are a lot of, as a parent myself, I know what I have told my son about education. Know yourself, your talents, you know, try to follow your dreams and ambitions, that you can always strive to do better. But I think that as I'm giving this opportunity, and we've been talking about the world around us, and that the world itself maybe is in dire straits. We are talking climate crisis, food security, you know, there's conflict in so many parts of the world. So in a way, I think I would say, follow your individual dreams, obviously, work towards them, but don't forget to see the world around you. So engage in solidarity and in friendship, try to make a difference, because I think, honestly, that the future belongs to the youth, right? So own the fact that in the future you will be responsible, and that right now there is an opportunity to do good things for this world in terms of consuming sustainably, of being conscious citizens. So I think my advice would be engage, be interested in the world and in your community, in your country, and try to do good for the betterment of your society, your country, and the world as a whole.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Did I get it correct?
Yeah.
It's
been a pleasure.
It's been a greatest pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on the Youth Time Show. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been here with Her Excellency Ambassador Ingrid Mollestad, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Norway to Ghana, delving deeper into the various policies and programs to solidify the bilateral diplomacy between Norway and Ghana. Until then, the show comes your way another time. It's bye for now.